Hey. Today I wanted to talk about something that I've wanted to talk about for a very long time, and I have not had the chance to sit down and really put it into words because it is such a big topic to me and to my life and understanding who I am. I think I'm just going to start at the very beginning and work my way to where I am now. First off, I wanted to say these are trigger wordings right here. If any of what I'm going to be talking about today is going to make you uncomfortable, please don't watch the video. I don't want to put anybody in a worse mental headspace than they are. I'm going to be talking a lot about what my life was like growing up and how that impacted me to the person that I am now and how I got better. This is hard. I also wanted to say that this video is not meant to be directly hurtful. This is not coming from a place of bitterness or anger. This is more about how I've acknowledged some parts of my past and I can walk and move forward and heal and grow by recognizing the things that I did experience. This video is not going to completely encompass all of my experiences. However, I do think the things I want to talk about today are important for me to communicate to you for multiple reasons. One, so that I myself, in my journey moving forward with my social media and my YouTube, I can feel like I'm being completely honest with you about who I am and you can understand a little bit better of the person that I am, because I used to just have very prefabricated, not personal content. I did not want to share a lot about my personal life because, as you will see, it was not good. I want to just be honest because I'm in a different place, I'm in a better place. I just want to be completely honest to you about what my personal life looks like right now. Also, if you're going through the same thing, I want to encourage you. If you're currently in a situation that I used to be in, I want to encourage you that things do get better and that you will have control at some point. And so at some point of your life, you can have control over your whole situation. First off, there's a very fitting sponsor for this video, so let's cut to that. Thank you so much to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. Sib is gonna be helping me. So is there something interfering with your personal happiness today? If you don't have a little emotional support therapy guy, probably right. BetterHelp will help meet your needs and match you with a licensed professional. It's not a crisis line and it's not self-help. It's a professional counseling service done securely online. One of the things is that there is a broad range of expertise on BetterHelp that might not be available in your area. So that is one of the good reasons for considering doing online counseling, is if you can't find something equivalent in person, this service is available worldwide and you can always log into your account and message your counselor at any time that you wish. If in-person therapy is something that is really daunting to you, which I can understand how it would be, it was something very daunting to me. Having weekly schedules online with a professional might help break that barrier and boundary for you to be able to speak to a specialist about your goals and your concerns. And if you're not stoked with the counselor that you've received, or if you think that somebody else would be a better fit, it is free and easy to switch counselors up for whatever your desire or your preference is. It's also more affordable than traditional counseling and there is financial aid available. So BetterHelp wants to start helping you live a happier life today. So you can go to the code down in the description, which is betterhelp.com/SarahTepes. That's better H-E-L-P, betterhelp.com/SarahTepes. Don't leave me to join the over 1 million people that are taking charge of their mental health with the help of an experienced professional. If you'd like to try it out, you can click the link in the description to get 10% off your first month at betterhelp.com/SarahTepes. Thank you so much to them for sponsoring this video and also facilitate this topic with you guys. But let's get back into the video. Let's start at the very beginning. This is going to be very hard for me to talk about because it's talking about things that are very personal and close to me. It's going to be talking about my family, and there's been a lot of hurt in my life and in their life. It's taken a long time to be able to get to a point where I'm not just sitting here crying and talking about it. I'm not currently experiencing the high anxiety that I used to be. I'm not experiencing depression, suicidal thoughts, and I'm not grieving anything currently. Well, I remember the last time I cried, it was 2 days ago, and that was because I was watching Queer Eye and it was really sentimental. But before that, I can't remember the last time I cried because I was just super sad. It used to be that I would cry every single day. I'm not in that place anymore. I just wanted to make that clear that I am totally okay right now, and I just want to be communicating my experience so that you get to know me a little bit better and you can understand who I am a little bit more. And if you're going through the same thing, you might have some hope or encouragement in that. There's 3 things that I would say have been with me since the beginning of me being a little kid growing up. The very first thing would be religion. Religion was first and foremost in my family, and it was very important, something that was on the table every single day. Every little tiny action was always scrutinized through the lens of the Bible and Christianity. I want to say that there is a big difference, I think, between faith and religion. The way that I was brought up was very legalistic. The second thing that carried throughout all of my life as I remember it was domestic abuse. I had never known my parents to have a happy marriage, and I would wake up most days to yelling, arguing, and it was something that I was very involved in and present in because I was also homeschooled. So there was no time that I could really leave it or escape it. It's really hard to call it that and acknowledge it that, and something that has really helped me to acknowledge all of what I went through has been counseling, which I'm going to talk about a little bit later, but it's really hard for me to even call out all of these things that happened because I feel like I'm being dramatic, or I feel like I'm just trying to be distasteful or complaining, any of that. And that's not the case. It's taken me a really long time to acknowledge that I did not grow up in a very good environment. And the third thing that I have experienced since I am sure that I was around 10 years old has been anxiety. I've had basically crippling anxiety since I was very young. And I was always insecure about the person that I was because I was an immigrant child. I was homeschooled. I didn't get to interact with a lot of kids, and my knowledge of English was based on British English and also reading literature, which was a lot of it was British literature. I just enjoy British literature. And I said certain words in a British accent and said certain words like, instead of gasoline, I would say petrol. Instead of aluminum, I would say aluminium. So I said some things like quirky. The brief interaction that I had with kids growing up, and they would like, not exactly make fun of me, but be like, why are you saying that way? Why do you talk like that? I just thought I was an idiot. I didn't know how to talk, and I had a lot of social anxiety growing up. I didn't know how to talk to people. If more than one person was looking at me when I was speaking, my face would turn red, like my tongue would swell up, my mouth would get dry. I couldn't speak to people. So even me being able to talk to a camera and not have my mouth go dry is a big thing for me. I always thought that my anxiety was taught to my own image, my self-image, the way that I looked, my body, the fact that I was different from other people, any insecurity that a girl has just compounded because I didn't even have the ability to interact with kids my age, like in a normal social way. I was homeschooled, so I was always different. People make fun of homeschoolers. I just always felt that I needed to be intelligent and better than others. I always felt that I needed to justify why I was intelligent by trying to be the most intelligent and scholarly student possible, and also by putting down other, especially girls, that were attractive and sociable and athletic and all of the other stuff. I always felt like I needed to put others down just so that I wasn't this really lame, homeschooled, awkward kid. By the time that I was 16, all of this was compounding, and I started to have extreme depression and suicidal thoughts. And that was, oh God, don't cry. It's really hard to go back and look at my mental state and the person that I used to be and how broken and sad I used to be. And like right now, when I think about the person that I used to be, I just get really sad for her. It was not a good place to be. I didn't know examples of happy relationships. I had a proper understanding of God, of understanding that people that call themselves Christians often really don't represent God. Such as, I grew up in a very homophobic environment, and I want to be honest that growing up with those biases, it's so hard to set yourself out of that environment, to look at who you used to be and think, like how you used to think, to look at it clearly and to acknowledge that a lot of that was indoctrination, and a lot of that is respecting somebody who's older in your life, even if you don't know better, and learning from them that same exact thing that they're teaching. If you have limited role models and mentors in your life, you just have adults that you look up to, they'll just teach you that same thing, and it's really hard to become a teenager to an adult like me and to not have those preconceptions as well. I myself, I don't agree with that right now. A lot of saltiness about all that hate coming from the Christian community towards people that haven't done anything to deserve that. I'm getting ahead of myself. When I was 16, I was going through a big depressive and suicidal phase. I am very fortunate that at that point I had made a promise to myself to never attempt self-harm or to attempt suicide because I respect myself too much. I don't know what that means to you or not, but it definitely kept me out of all of the moments that I considered self-harm, and I'm very glad to say that I never did attempt self-harm or never did attempt suicide. However, that doesn't mean that it wasn't on my mind 24/7. It just means that I didn't take any action, which is good. If you're going through the same thing, get help, go to counseling, find a mentor who you do trust and talk to them about it. So when I was 16, I started to experience my first harassment in the church. This was a lot that I didn't want to talk about to anybody in authority. I grew up in a very white-oriented, male-oriented environment and church. The language around any kind of abuse, harassment was always that the woman was doing something wrong. Dressing provocatively, asking for the situation she should have known better, not have been in that situation. So there was never a point where I felt safe talking to an adult about the harassment that I was experiencing, and that did carry through college. I don't want to go too far into detail about this, but all of this compounded in not valuing myself, not having any self-worth, having crippling anxiety, and feeling like I didn't deserve to exist. To compound to the harassment, I did not recognize it as such at the time. I mean, some of the more extreme cases, I definitely did recognize them and did not have any kind of courage to talk to an adult about, but a lot of the experiences that I and my friends experienced, we didn't recognize it as harassment or abuse at the time because there was no adult and no figure in our lives cared to show us girls that we were important and that we didn't deserve to be treated in that way. Wow, that's deep. I can laugh about it now because, as a lot of people, laughing is a way to cope with a lot of sad emotions and a lot of, like painful things. I laugh when I feel awkward or nervous. And something that I really did experience growing up when I was a teenager was daddy issues. Didn't recognize how toxic it was to be a girl and to be obsessed with older men. On the contrary, when I talked to people that I was very close about that, they all encouraged me to be interested in older men because either they didn't know any better or they themselves were in that same grooming situation mindset. And I didn't know what grooming was at the time. I just thought that boys my age were dumb and stupid and that I was too mature for them and that I needed to be with somebody who was mature. A lot to unpack there. Some of this probably is shocking to you. Two more things to mention that I was experiencing was faith was used against me, as I said, as a girl, and basically every action that I took was judged and scrutinized. So living in a very man-centered, male-centered environment, none of the things that I felt were valid, and women were constantly put down. And as a girl, I always felt that I needed to compete for the same wages or attention or whatever that a guy did. One of those prime examples was I worked at good old Chick-fil-A and I was being trained as a manager and I was being paid $2 less than the guy that I was training. I have a lot of saltiness to the patriarchy. And because I was seeking approval from men and not getting it at that age, my self-confidence was low and I did not value myself. I did not think of myself as anything worthwhile, which definitely continued in the way that I perceived myself every time that I was harassed. By the end of high school, I desperately wanted to get out. I wanted to leave. There were times where I talked to my family about, my depression, and I was called selfish. When my parents found out that I had suicidal tendencies, they were scared, as I would assume any parent would be, but they did not point me to the right resources and did not at all actively try to help me get out of it. It was always, don't be anxious, don't be depressed, don't be sad, that all those feelings are selfish. And that's something that has walked with me through to this time of my life. Any independence that I chose, any happiness, anything for my mental health has always been actively and explicitly called selfish by my family and by my friends. So let's get to college. My mental health got a little bit better, but not by a lot because I wasn't seeking help and I wasn't making active changes to recognize all of this going on in my life. At this point, and even up till the end of last year, I was thinking a lot of this was in my head, that I was doing everything wrong. I wasn't experiencing any abuse. I should get over it. Everybody goes through this. Everybody fights. That's what I was always told. Everybody fights. Nobody is perfect. Don't complain. And I entered an abusive relationship freshman year because the college that I went to is very much a get married as fast as possible and make babies as fast as possible college. When we broke up at the beginning of sophomore year, you know, the things that you think about and you're like about to go to bed and you think about it and it makes you want to puke. And it makes you wide awake and you're like, I can't believe that I experienced that. That was one of those situations. However, I'm really happy in a sense that I went through that because now I know exactly what I would never ever want in a relationship or in a partner. And that relationship really did put me down a lot emotionally and both physically. Something that when I got out of the situation with my parents and was able to start going to college, I'd come back for breaks and summers, but I was able to be away for a while, was that I didn't want to ever be in a relationship where there was yelling or physical abuse. And in this relationship, my partner at the time had both yelled at me multiple times and had grabbed me pretty hard. So I was still in very much of a I'm doing everything wrong mentality, but at the time I went along with it because I didn't recognize, again, abuse. When I saw it, I thought it was all my fault because that's what I had always been taught. Sophomore year, I started to really think I need to prioritize my mental health. And that's when I did. I started to take myself a little bit more seriously. Sophomore year was still not good for me mentally. And I was at the point of being removed from my family, of not seeing them all the time. However, my parents would call and text me multiple times every single day, and I never felt that I could ever do anything on my own without them asking what I had been doing for the past hour or two. The calling ranged from 1 to 2 times a day to 4, 5, 6 times a day, which is exhausting. At this point, I felt that I couldn't really do anything that I wanted to that was fun without lying to my family, which I don't enjoy lying. Something that I struggled with is lying about the most basic things that weren't wrong because my family was so strict about everything. My parents didn't want me to be driving somebody else to be driving me. It didn't matter if it was a guy or a girl, just for my safety. When I didn't have a car at college and I sometimes needed to go get groceries or we wanted to go see a movie, so I would lie about all that. At this point, I started to, at the end of sophomore year, beginning of junior year, I moved out junior year, which was really difficult to do. I was called a bunch of nasty stuff again about how selfish I was for wanting my own life, for wanting my independence. I was told that this is how I used to be from such a young age and that I'm a rebel, I'm horrible. My relationship with God was questioned again and again, and it was really hard for me because I was seeking approval from my family and from peers. Junior year, first semester was extremely difficult for me. And I started to cut out people out of my life, people that were good friends to me and people that I still love but have not reached out to again because I didn't have time to invest in those relationships as I was working to continue keeping my 4.0 GPA. For what reason? Don't know. Just because I was a perfectionist. Did I mention during all of this, I had a full scholarship and maintained a 4.0 GPA while being part of student government 1 year, about being part of photo club, working for a department, maintaining this YouTube channel and my job and my shop. I started to push friendships out of my life for the first time ever. Some of them were toxic, some of them I'm not upset that I stopped talking to, some of them good riddance. Some of them I still think of fondly and I still want the best for. It's just that at that point in my life I did not have time for them because I was pulling multiple all-nighters a week to do the projects that I needed to at school to continue maintaining myself and my business. This was also a point of crying every single night, feeling very worthless, not understanding my self-worth. Junior year, second semester, I met my current boyfriend. I went into the relationship very unhealthy, very hurtful, very insecure, and he somehow saw through that and past all that and saw what I really did need from a partner. We had a lot of ups and downs that we both worked on equally without any kind of anger, any of that negative, toxic that I experienced. As we started dating for a couple of months, I realized I needed to start going to counseling. It was something that I had always wanted to do since I was in high school and had been discouraged to do, and so I was at a point of there were many deep issues that I really needed to address. I wanted to start going to counseling, and then COVID hit. My boyfriend and I were long distance over the summer till now. He's just moving back this month. So I felt alone a lot of the time, and I had to start finding my self-worth not in a relationship, in anything other than bettering myself, becoming a better person, trying to work with my emotions and trying to work through all the trauma that I had experienced. I was still dealing with massive anxiety over long distance, which my boyfriend did a really good job of being there for me. I was able to deal with all of these emotions myself, figuring out overwork, figuring out a schedule that worked for me. I was still overworked, still over school, and still experiencing anxiety at this point. Fast forward to the end of 2020, there was a really big argument, just like always, but this time I didn't go back to the conversation, didn't call back, didn't apologize, didn't say anything, and stopped talking to my family. And at the beginning of 2021, I started to go to counseling. That is where I really realized how much trauma and how many toxic relationships that I had gone through and how toxic my relationship with my family was. And at this point, I was feeling anger and bitterness and hurt towards my family. Every time I tried to communicate with them, it just seemed like nothing good would ever come out of it. I felt guilty about all of these feelings. I felt guilty that I wasn't reaching out to my family. And the counselor that I went to, coincidentally a man, which I wasn't expecting. I wanted to go to like a female counselor. It was a male counselor, and I decided to try it out just for like a second. If I didn't like it, I would go to somebody else, and he turned out to be such a great counselor. Counseling was really the best thing that did happen to me in all of this journey. As I said before, it has not been easy to accept that the events, the circumstances I've gone through have been toxic and abusive. It's hard to say those words. Relationships go two ways, and I was trying to fix something that wasn't mine to fix. When I stopped talking to my family, the week after that, remember the chronic anxiety that I told you I've had since I was 10? I stopped having anxiety. This was before going to counseling. I realized it weeks after that I had gone weeks without feeling anxiety. And I had never experienced that before. Since I can remember, I have bad memories since I was like 10. I've had anxiety. And I always thought it was connected to my relationship with guys, to my schoolwork. I never even thought that it would have been related to my family. So the anxiety that I've been feeling since I was around 10 years old stopped. It was not related to schoolwork, it wasn't related to my relationships with people, it was related to my family, which is crazy to think about and crazy to acknowledge. As I started going to therapy, I thought that I had enough distance between me and my family to properly understand the situation and properly understand where my family was coming from, what I had gone through. And as I started to go, I realized I had not dealt with all that trauma. At this point, at the end of 2020, at the beginning of 2021, I was experiencing some pretty bad depression. Not related to anxiety, which usually depression, anxiety were... I picked up I'm Thinking of Ending Things, the book, in around November, and wasn't able to pick it up to read it until about 3 weeks ago. And that's how long it took me to really get over, depression, which connected with seasonal depression. F's in the chat if you have seasonal depression. Seasonal depression was a big thing for me, but also being able to let myself grieve. Being open to my friends was a big thing that really helped me have peace, reconcile myself to the situation. I realized it's not up to me to fix these people. And another thing I learned is that it is okay to have boundaries. Having boundaries is not selfish, as I was told many times. Countless times, finding support in a community that supports you is just the way to go. As I went to counseling, I started to work weekly on acceptance, growth, grief, and coping. I learned many coping mechanisms to deal with any kind of jealousy that I had, or anger, or feeling like I wasn't good enough. So having people that really did show me that my worth didn't lie in what I could give to others. If you're like me, you probably have been told that any kind of self-care is selfish. And another thing that I wanted to mention is looks. Looks play a big part in this whole story. As you can tell, I don't look like your typical Southern Baptist lady. When I started going to counseling, I had to give my counselor a couple of goals that I wanted to achieve by the end of our counseling. And one of those was to feel like an adult. I was 21, then 22, not feeling like an adult, feeling like a teenager. Partial reason for that was that I had never been validated by anybody that was an adult figure in my life. My mother never called me a woman, never said I was an adult, and when I would call myself a woman, she'd shut that down. Which is very hard to not even have any kind of coming of age of like, I've worked this hard on school and my business and buying a house and having a house and making money and being my own individual, my own person, proving them all wrong that I could be an artist and be self-sustaining, and to not even be considered an adult. That was really hard, and so that was something that I wanted to tackle when I went to counseling. As I started to go, I realized that I can make my own rules for my life. I realized that the way that other people lived didn't have to be the way that I lived. Having my own faith didn't mean that I had to have the same exact faith and rule book that everybody else did. I've always wanted tattoos, and here I am. I got my first tattoos. I wanted to dye my hair. Crazy concept that God would send me to hell if I had blue hair. I realized so many things that I had been taught were wrong or not that deep. Focusing on the color of somebody's hair or whether they have tattoos or piercings, but not caring about people in need or loving people the way that Christ says to, that's a travesty. These past couple of months I've been finding what faith means to myself. It's personal, and one thing that I've also learned as I've been learning all of this is that people have faith transitions, and there's a lot of shame that goes with that. If you've grown up in an environment like I did, there's a lot of shame that comes with that. But you know yourself, you know your beliefs, you know why you believe something or you don't, and somebody coercing you into a belief is not the way to make you believe that thing. That's something that I would encourage you to do if you're struggling with any of this, is to try to figure out what you really think of that situation, not what anybody else has told you. Don't just be rebellious and then become super liberal just to be like, you. That's not the way to do it. I didn't start to change my mindset to be more liberal because of all the pressure I found on social media. I started to do my research on why I believed what I did, and I realized that some of the things that I had been taught were taught from such a biased perspective. Everybody will have a bias. Everything that I believe and I read will have my own bias, but I'm a more emotive person. That's really going to shape the way that I view people and view situations. So that's my story. You would expect that if I just dyed my hair blue, I'm having a crisis, but it's quite the opposite. Is finding my own individuality and my own freedom and not feeling like I need to conform to what some other person who is not living my life, what they are telling me that I need to be conforming to. You have your own voice and your thoughts, and somebody who's telling you what to think or what to believe at the end of the day should not be that invested in your life. You'll know the people that genuinely love you and care for you when you meet them. They're not going to be the ones telling you what to think or what to believe. This also doesn't mean that you should be in a bubble. There are very many conservative people that I still know, that I still respect, and there's nothing wrong with the way that they live. Everybody has different beliefs based on all of their experiences, so I'm not trying to say that if you are more conservative and you know what you believe and you are genuine and kind to people about it, I'm not saying that that's wrong. It's really good. That's the way it should be. More people should be like that. If you're somebody who looks at women and thinks that abuse they experience is cause and effect by their actions, maybe reevaluate. If you're in any of these situations, I would definitely encourage you to seek counseling, to seek somebody who you can really trust and talk to as a mentor, somebody who will not judge you for things that are beyond your control. If you're sitting there not making all the right decisions and you just feel guilty about it all, maybe realize everybody goes through that. If you're in the same situation with an abusive family or home, I came from that, and the reason that I'm so good at drawing was because I was homeschooled, so I didn't really have the opportunity to go out, be active, have friends, and be outside of the home all the time. And art was really the thing that kept me sane through all of what I just talked about. It's hard for me to have the same relationship with art that I used to because I just used to rely on art to get me out of that bad mental space. I'm now trying to have a relationship with art where I'm pursuing it for more of a creative and positive aspect, not to just put down all of my negative emotions that I couldn't otherwise communicate with anybody. Yeah, my relationship with art is kind of complex. And that's why I'm such a good artist. If you sit there and you're like, how are you so good at drawing? I'm just interested to see how just my art journey will grow. But I also wanted to say that I'm very appreciative of you being here and listening to my story. I'm not really worried about the feedback to this video being negative, just so you know. So thank you for looking out for me, and thank you for, you know, anything positive you throw my way. I really do appreciate it, and I'm very, very grateful for an audience like you that is so sweet and caring and always very positive. If you'd like to see more of my journey, like and subscribe to my channel. Turn on notification bell for more videos. I will have some fun videos coming your way. I'm gonna have a bedroom makeover soon and a studio makeover if you're interested in seeing those. And thank you so much to BetterHelp for sponsoring this video. I will talk to you guys in my next video. Bye.